News Talk 1400 KFRU is proud to present the KFRU Heritage Series. It's a one-hour perspective on the events and the people whose lives have contributed to the heritage of Boone County. Listen each Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The KFRU Heritage Series. From News Talk 1400 KFRU.
Well, on our Heritage Show, we've asked for suggestions of guests, and they've come from many different people. And then I received an email not long ago from the daughter of my guest this week, and she said, you should talk to my dad. And so I said, does he know that you're saying that I should talk to him? And she said, yes. And so we contacted Jerry Doherty, and he's in the studio for our Heritage Show. It's good to see you. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. Nice to see you, sir.
You've always been a good voice on the other end of the phone. You call sometimes, and you'll say certain things. I've always enjoyed talking to you because you're very positive, you're very energetic, and so I'm looking forward to being lifted through this Heritage Show. Have you always been that way?
I hope so. I mean, thank you very much. I've known you a long time, and I've always enjoyed our conversations and always listen to you every morning.
Are you Boone County native?
I am a Boone County native, yes, sir.
From what part of the county?
Centralia, Missouri.
Now, talk about growing up in Centralia. I've lived there for a couple of years also.
You did?
It's a great community. I think it's fantastic people up there. What are your thoughts about Centralia? We haven't done Northern Boone County focused Heritage Show yet.
Okay. Well, actually, you probably know my age, but I was born in Centralia in 1946. My father worked for A.B. Chance Company, and actually he worked there his entire working life. He retired in the late 70s, and he passed away 8 years ago. But he was a Centralian for his entire life, as was my mother, and she's still living. She's living in a healthcare facility in Carbondale, Illinois, and she'll be 93 St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
So, but we still have the home there, but Centralia is where I grew up. I went through the Centralia public school system. Graduated from Centralia High School in 1965, and actually went to work for the company that I'm with today.
We'll talk about that in just a moment. People don't understand the impact of A.B. Chance sometimes on Centralia. Even people who are down here would have no idea. And it was always funny. I can remember the first time I heard about A.B. Chance, and I was thinking, oh, they do anchors.
Yes, they do.
They ship those out to the coast someplace, and they use those on boats. We're talking different kinds of anchors.
The anchors, if you see a telephone pole, usually there are 3 anchors on every telephone pole. But my father, as I say, he actually went to work there right after the war. Was I think a wonderful place for him to work. Mr. Chance was a wonderful man. I got to know him in the 60s, and actually in the 60s, A.B. Chance Company had a policy that they would hire high school students to work in the summer. Mm-hmm. So I actually worked in the shipping department, loading trucks and boxcars all the summers that I was in high school. So that was wonderful, a great experience.
Right downtown. I mean, the train tracks go right through downtown Centralia.
That's the main line between Kansas City and St. Louis is right through Centralia, Missouri.
Now, do you remember at the peak how many people were hired by A.B. Chance?
I think there were like 1,200 to 1,400 people that worked for A.B. Chance.
And I'm going to guess that at that point in time, most of them lived nearby. They weren't commuting a long ways at that point in time.
No. Mr. Chance, he made it a policy that if you worked for A.B. Chance Company, he wanted you to live in that Centralia School District. And they did.
And it helped the school district a lot. That was a school district that many times had many things going for it because of the impact of A.B. Chance. Do you know why he chose Centralia? Was that his home area, or was there another reason?
He lived in actually on Jefferson Street, and we're fortunate that my company we've done quite a bit of remodel work for Mr. Chance. While he lived there, and then after in 1976 is when Emerson Electric bought A.B. Chance. And then the whole policy kind of changed, but as far as the way they operated, Emerson was a big company.
So if they went to if Chance was there through 76 as Chance, and then Emerson bought it, what years did he start that then?
Chance Company had to be, I don't know, Mr. Chance's father, A. Bishop Chance, started Chance Company. Oh, golly, David. Back in I think the early 1900s.
The home that you mentioned, that's I think if I recall that, I mean that's What's that used for now? There's an area up there now, a beautiful house.
Well,
that
it's
sits
beautiful.
right on that
Actually, when Emerson bought the company, they used it. That was where they brought all their salespeople.
Yeah.
And then a relative of the Chance family a few years ago bought that and was planning on using it as a bed and breakfast. And that there hasn't been a need for that in Centralia, Missouri. And right now, I think they'll hold special meetings because Hubble is now the owner of AB Chance.
When you think of where did your family live in Centralia?
Actually, when I was 4 years old, I remember moving to Bradford Street, which was in the central part of Centralia, and where Abe Bishop Chance's home, where the Chance Gardens are.
I was going to ask you about the gardens in just a moment.
The gardens, my parents' home, which my mother still owns, is 1 block south of the gardens.
Okay, I understand that. The gardens have been around a long time also. People don't understand the beauty of walking through those gardens.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful.
And that's right close to downtown. It's just a block. I don't know which direction that would be, south.
It would be probably 3 blocks east of the city square.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat place to walk through, and that's open and just at least it used to be. I don't know if it still is. Just free reign.
Yes. Jack Chance, who's the son of Gano Chance. I mean, he's still around. And I think Jack still has an office in Centralia, Missouri, and he pretty much takes care of that facility.
Now, when you were in high school, was it the same high school as what exists now for Centralia?
Yes and no. The high school was there, but the gym was not. And the gym was actually where the middle school is, and that gym is still there. The middle school, there's been an addition put on that was not there when I was going through Centralia in the 60s.
So the high school was there. It didn't have the gymnasium.
Did
You'd
not
have to
have
go
the
down,
gymnasium.
and you played sports, I'm going to guess.
I played sports, yes.
Now, which ones?
I played football, basketball, and played golf.
Yes,
sir.
It's kind of neat because the region that Centralia had competition with is kind of one of those good. If you're from north central Missouri, you just kind of fit into that kind of a feel for what happened. And, it's different. I've said this. I'll get your impression on this. It's different in North Boone County as opposed to Southern Boone County.
Yes,
is it not?
Yes, it is. Now, the farthest we ever got south from Centralia was we played Hallsville in basketball. Uh-huh. They didn't have football at that time, but we also played Helias every year out of Jeff City, and they were very, very strong. But in Centralia, we were in the Quint City Conference. That you went through Shelbina, North Shelby, South Shelby, Monroe City, Louisiana.
All of those places.
North and Northeast.
Just a little bit of travel makes such a difference in what your connections are with.
That's correct. Right. That is correct. And of course, we also played Macon. Macon wasn't in our conference, but we played Macon in football and basketball.
Yeah, it was much later when Macon shared a conference for a while, the CCC, the Clarence Cannon Conference.
Yes, they
but
did.
You're right. At that point in time, Macon would have been in the North Central Missouri Conference, which would have been a Kirksville and Moberly and Trenton and Chillicothe and those places.
That's correct.
Brookfield and Marceline. So, again, it's just amazing how, if you're from a small town, I'm going to say Missouri, but small town, probably any state, you just kind of have that's your area.
Those are my roots.
Yeah,
those are my roots.
When you think of Centralia, I think of certain things like I think Adams Furniture used to be up there. I can remember that. I don't know how long they were there, and then the hardware store that's right on the square
Ritchie's.
also. Yeah, Ritchie's Hardware Store. Were those things like places, especially Ritchie's Hardware, was that a part of your?
I always remember Ritchie's Hardware. Even back to the early 70s, I remember Ritchie's Hardware.
Those places it's hard to come by those places, but those places still exist.
Yes, they do.
So what other spots were there that were the hangouts when you were growing up in
Centralia?
Centralia?
You had at that time there were 2 drugstores, but now it was Wilson's Drugstore, which is now the Kincaid Pharmacy.
Yeah.
Which they've moved locations, but they're there.
Yeah. Did you have what was travel to Columbia like when you were growing up in Centralia?
In fact, growing up, you either, if you were going to travel, you would either you go to Mexico or Columbia. So Columbia was a place that I did as in high school. I spent a lot of time in Columbia.
Was that an easy drive at that point in time?
Yes, it was. It was fine. It might take 30 minutes, but it was a blacktop road, Route B, which is still there. You go through Hallsville and you come to Columbia.
I was still trying to think. It's 124 is up there someplace also, and
124 would take you to 63.
Yeah, to 63. Oh, yeah, that's where you would go over and catch Collier's Junction. Now,
that's correct.
Tell people about Collier's Junction, because I'll tell you what, when we came down from north, that would have been the one place that we would be most likely to stop for something to eat or for gas.
Collier's Junction was a great location. That was at 124 and 63. And in fact, I'm not sure that Collier's Junction, I don't think the restaurant is open any longer.
Yeah,
there's one right across. There's one right across the road that's there. But Collier's was the place to go.
Do you remember? I mean, I don't know who owned that or who it was, but who was named for Collier's. No, it was just Collier's Junction. And you're funny. You still grow up, and even when you pass it, people who are with you have no idea what you're talking about. Say, "Oh yeah, Collier's Junction."
Well, I know the Collier name was tied into as a Shell distributor, and it was because it was Collier Oil. And then a friend of mine by the name of Gary Evans, who lives in Columbia, Missouri now, actually bought into that, and that was named then the Collier Evans Oil. And
one of the things about Centralia was, and we mentioned the railroad tracks a moment ago, but now they've got that change where there's actually an overpass. But for the longest time, the trains could come through town, and if they had to stop on business or something, there would be times where you couldn't get across the railroad tracks through town. Would that be true?
That is correct. And it's still that way today, except where the overpass is.
Yeah, the overpass of the that would be on the northwest corner of town, I think.
The would be on the northwest.
Where Route B would come up and join the highway.
That's where they put in the overpass.
So what kind of problems did it cause when there was trains across the tracks through town?
You would wait. You would wait because. And even today, the freight trains they're actually David, they're 24/7. I mean that is still the main freight line, but and years ago, of course, that was the passenger line, and I have ridden it was Union Pacific.
Yeah,
and you would ride that train if you were going to St. Louis.
Was that instead of driving? Sometimes people hop on the
train.
Sure,
they would hop on the train and they'd go. In fact, actually, when I went to Missouri, there was a train that went from Columbia to Centralia.
Yeah,
and it was the Wabash train. And if I had an extra $2.40 back in the 60s, that's what it cost.
So you would ride that instead of drive?
I didn't have a car. And this when I was going to college, I didn't have a car, and so I would if I had a friend that was going to from Columbia to Centralia, I would do that. I've even hitchhiked to Centralia.
Yeah.
But if I had the extra cash, I'd go down. The train ran twice a day.
When you talk about Route B, I'm thinking Route Z. It's funny the number of people who live in this area and maybe aren't familiar with the area who talk about the trip to Centralia from Columbia. You go up Route Z. Right. That's not the way that you would go up to.
Too many curves.
Yeah, too many curves, and it's a longer trip than if you would go Route
B. Yes, it
but
is.
some people see that exit on the highway and it says Route Z Centralia and it points to the north.
Right.
And they would go. What was Route Z used for, or how was that when you can remember? Back when you were growing up?
It was a blacktop road, just like Route B now is paved concrete. I mean it's they've really improved that, but Route Z is still a blacktop, but it still serves as there's the farming community, and we've done several projects at Midway, which is right on the road, which is on Route Z.
Yeah,
but it's just it's easier to take Route B than Route Z.
We'll take a break for some announcements in a moment, but I want to do one more thing with the trains. I can remember being up there. I used to teach school in Centralia and live up there.
Did.
There would be times when buses would get late to school because the train was across the tracks and couldn't get to school.
That's exactly right. When those freight trains come through there, they're long.
Yeah,
and we always worry. And this has happened. There have been a few accidents that have happened there because they didn't have the good cross arms up, which they do today.
Yeah,
that's all been changed, but it wasn't that way back in the 60s.
Then, and if there was an emergency not connected with a train crossing again, you'd have something stranded on one side where you couldn't get to the other side very
correct.
easily.
There have been times where I know that I've heard there's been an ambulance that's tried to get across that track, and it just couldn't do it.
It's a Heritage Show. Jerry Doherty is our guest. We're going to come back and visit more with him after this. This is News Talk 1400 KFRU.
This is the KFRU Heritage Series. More coming up on News Talk 1400 KFRU. KFRU is proud to present the KFRU Heritage Series.
Our guest on today's Heritage Show is Jerry Doherty, and we were talking in our first segment about Centralia and him growing up there and also the names that are associated with that, especially when you think of A.B. Chance. And Are there other people that you think of who were civic leaders as you became more aware of what was going on, how they shaped Centralia at that point of your life and at that point of that town's history? Anybody come to mind?
Well, of course, some of them have passed, but Mr. Chance was he was a person that I really had a lot of respect for, the way he ran his business, the way he treated his employees. And then later on, there was a gentleman by the name of Paul Sturgeon, who was he was a vice president of A.B. Chance, but he was also the mayor of Centralia. But you see.
What did they do? What made them special? I mean, a small town. I would think small town business. You have to treat your people right.
And he did, and I've never forgotten that. But
people still call it in Centralia Chance Company, don't they?
Oh yeah, I still call it
Even
Chance
though
Company.
It went through Emerson and then Hubble, as you said.
Well, it was first it was A.B. Chance, then Emerson bought it, and then I think four men who were who actually worked with Chance actually bought it back, and they held it for a few years, and then Hubble came in.
How does it continue? I mean, is it as vibrant now as it was?
There have been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Of course, in the down economy, there's that issue. A lot of the management is no longer in Centralia. I mean, Hubble's a big company.
Yeah.
And they've got people all over the country.
They're still manufacturing there.
They're still manufacturing though. They're still making the anchors, and they're still making the switchgear, and I think the departments are all still there that were there.
Must be doing something right, because
yes,
a lot of manufacturing jobs have gone overseas also.
Yes, there have.
Now,
they have.
You mentioned in the first segment who you're working for now. That's another name that a lot of people would associate with Centralia. Tell us about
Bill Reinhardt.
Yeah, the Reinhardts.
Bill
and your
Reinhardt.
association with them.
Bill Reinhardt. As I say, I've known that name, and he was actually one of my mentors. And in fact, I still talk with him. But when I was in my sophomore year of college, so this would have been 1967. I was living in Centralia, and he had called me. He wanted to hire somebody to help him implement a cost system to work for him in the summertime while I was going to Missouri. So I did. I worked for him that summer, and we got along. And actually, at summertime, vacations, Christmas vacations or spring breaks, if I wasn't, or depending on what I was doing, I continued to go in and work for him.
So what's a cost system?
A cost system is when you're bidding a job, you've got to bid those jobs, and obviously you need to know what they cost, because I'm going to tell an individual or an owner what it's going to cost him to build that building. Well, a cost system, you have to have data from other projects. What did it cost you to pour that concrete? What did it cost you to frame that wall?
How do you know that a sophomore or so?
Well, I was in the construction curriculum at Missouri,
Yeah.
and he knew that. So no, it was a great learning experience for me.
What's the construction curriculum? Do they still have something comparable to
Yeah,
that at
yes,
AMU
they
now?
do. It's changed a lot, but construction management's where you have people that actually want to be contractors, and you go in and you a lot of business courses, you have a lot of engineering courses, and a lot of construction courses, and that's anyway. He did that, and then I graduated in Missouri in January of 1970. And I went to work for him full time in 1970, and then in the 1980s, in 1980 we became partners, and then in 1995 he was ready. He was gone.
Yeah.
My wife and I had bought it. We'd bought the rest of the stock, and so I've been with Reinhardt Construction Company from 67 part time, but full time since 70 to 2013.
You kept the Reinhardt name on it.
Yes, I did. I've had several people ask me, said, why didn't you change the name? And I thought, and if I would have changed it, it would have been sometime in the 80s, but why do that? I've worked my whole life promoting that name,
Yeah.
and there's two things I said. I was never going to change the name, and I'm not going to move it. I'm going to leave it right there in Centralia.
So he started that business again. I'll see. You know when he started that business?
He came to Centralia in 1957. There he was living in St. Louis and had a small construction company in St. Louis. And there was a gentleman by the name of Blair Smith, who was the main guy who was hiring office people for A.B. Chance Company. In 1957, there was a need for homes for people who wanted to work at Chance Company, and that's the reason Bill Reinhardt came to Centralia.
You ever heard an estimate of how many homes he built in Centralia?
Oh, they're over on Reed Street. They're over on the west side, and I really don't know. But there's several.
Jerry Doherty is our guest on the Heritage Show on KFRU. Well, I knew that name, and I know that name also, but the people continue to see the construction trailers and everything with Reinhardt name on it. We have to talk about the extent of the spread of Reinhardt. So, as far as you know, what's the farthest away that a job has been done that you have either bid or that Reinhardt Construction did?
I went to Defiance, Missouri about 5 years ago and built a very large home in Defiance. And that's kind of a niche that Reinhardt has gotten into, are large homes.
So large homes, is that it? But I mean, you've done other big projects also. What kind of project?
This was a home, but it was in Defiance.
Yeah.
Then I went up. We went up and did a Siteman oil service station in Burlington, Iowa. We had done one in Mexico, Missouri, and they wanted to know, Jerry, will you go to Burlington and build one just like it? And so we did.
Yeah.
But I like to stay in about a 90-mile radius of Central Missouri. I like for my men to be home at night with their families.
Sure. And how many people are hired by your business?
Right now, we average probably between 60 and 70 employees.
What was it like over the last 5 years? Did you suffer at 2008, 7, 8, 9?
In 2008, we probably got down to maybe 40 employees. Now, with this last year, I mean, things have started to perk up a little bit. And so last year, I had probably 70, 75 of my own men that are under my employment, that are they're either carpenters, laborers, brick masons, iron workers, or cement finishers. But you'll have a large project, but you've got subcontractors on there, like say Meyer Electric, who've got their own electricians. Well, they're subcontractors of mine, but they're not directly under my employment.
At any one time, what's a comfortable number of projects to have going at once? I've never talked to anybody that does what you do, so I have no idea.
Oh, I'd say if I've got 5 or 6 going at the same time. I mean, we probably had, depending on the size, we've had as many as probably 10. But one job might be several $1 million, and another one could be be just a few $1,000s.
You mentioned several $1 million. What's the biggest project that you've ever bid on, and that you have ever achieved the bid?
Biggest project that Reinhardt's ever been associated with is a patient tower at Boone Hospital. Yeah. And that's $100 million, and that was 3 years.
What's it say about a company that has its origins in Centralia, Missouri, of a population, I don't know, a couple thousand or whatever that is, being able to win these bids and to produce and to do what you're asked to do and do it well, so that other people say, yeah, we want them on our job?
You worry about something about your marketing, but fortunately in this area, hopefully people know the work that we've done, and if they want to know what we've done, we can show them, we can tell them. The homes is a whole other issue.
Yeah.
That you wonder why that Reinhardt has gotten into these larger homes, but
I would guess it's because some people who have been associated with the companies that had big projects done know how you do it and say, would you build us a home?
How this happened. Back in 1984, we've done a lot of work at the University of Missouri, I think, as you've known. But they've been all basically commercial projects. A lot of work for the hospitals. It was said back in the 90s that Reinhardt Construction had more individual contracts for the University of Missouri than any other contractor. Not dollar volume, but just individual projects. But we stayed 10 years at the University Hospital and never left. Did the ophthalmology clinic, the diabetes center, the eye research facility, OPD radiology, the lobby concourse, those, but they've been great. University of Missouri has been a great customer. Well, in 1984, Peter McGraw was hired as the president of the University of Missouri. He was coming here from, I think, Minnesota, but he came down here to Providence Point, which was built, but he wanted his own private living quarters, which Providence Point did not have that at that time. Huh. And so fortunately, we were able to, with the university, they said it's got to be done. It's got to be done in 6 months, and it was a $500,000 project with the private living quarters and the pool. And so they actually negotiated that with us. And so we went in and we got it done. We don't finish a job late. So we got in, got his private living quarters, got it finished, and it really turned out well. And then Diane McGraw went on the board of Boone County Bank. And she's at that bank board meeting, and she meets a gentleman by the name of Stan Kroenke. And they're talking, and Stan Kroenke says, "I'm going to build a home in Columbia, Missouri." And Diane McGraw says, "You have got to call Jerry Doherty." And you wonder how these things evolve, but quite honestly, that's how it did. And after we built that project, we were there over a year, and then that has just led to multiple projects that have been somewhat similar to Mr. Kroenke's home.
You know, I'm going to guess there's probably like this confidentiality that exists between doctors and counselors and lawyers and their clients. But man, you bring that up, and it's all kinds of questions of curiosity. What was the process like of designing that home? Did they come to you and say, "Here's what we want, we've got a pretty good idea," or did they say, "Help us to formalize what we want"?
No, what they did, they'd hired an architect. His name was Howard Nearing, Nearing, Stats, Lager, and Jones out of Shawnee Mission, Kansas, who had done high-end residential work. In fact, actually, Howard at the time, when I met him, he had told Stan, he said, "I'm not sure that Central Missouri's got a contractor that could build this home." And then after the thing is all done, Howard Nearing he came back and he said, and I've got great carpenters, David, I really do. The carpenters that I work with, they're the best. And Howard Nearing told me, he said, "You don't even see some of this kind of quality in where I am." In Kansas City. So that turned out to be a very, very positive experience. We became good friends, and we're still good friends.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful home.
So is it pretty much like it was? When was that you built that?
88.
88? So that's 25, it's a quarter of a century old.
Sure. We're still, and Ann will have us come back and she'll want this and to change, just to do this or add this or alter this, and we've that's been a great relationship.
How big? Everybody says how many square feet. I don't know how many square feet, or if you even remember how many square feet.
Well, Stan always said a little over 10,000 square feet.
Well, that's not. Compared to what some people are building right now, that's not that bad.
That's right. That's right.
When you drive through the area, and do you just say, does your mind just automatically go to projects that
Sure.
you've been involved with?
Sure, I do. I mean and I enjoy that when I go around the university and you go by the ophthalmology clinic. Well, in fact, I've had carpenters there. We've been doing the finished work of the new patient tower that the university is getting ready to open here within the next month.
So finish work. In other words, they bring you on after somebody else had already started.
Yes. And J.E. Dunn out of Kansas City was the construction manager. So they had the finish work and all the outside concrete work. So these are separate bid packages. So we bid that work, and we were successful in that. So I've had, for the last year, I probably had 40 carpenters at the University Hospital doing the finish work.
Is finish work one of the toughest things? Because that's what people are going to see.
That's exactly right. They're going to see that, right. They're not going to see that concrete that's sitting in a
They'll know later if that doesn't hold up.
Yes,
but right now, when they walk in,
they won't see that. They won't see that.
So that has to be the tougher.
Yes, it is.
So other projects at the university, other things that people, because some of these would be inside of buildings, and there always seems to be construction going on around hospitals on the campus of a major learning and teaching institution.
We remodeled all the labs in Lefevre Hall. We did the Lowry Mall. When in the 60s, Lowry Mall was a street.
Yes.
It went right in front of the library. Now it's all bricks, and we did all of that.
So do you do many of those kinds of projects?
Sure.
Because that's not a building.
Sure, but it's
structure.
It's outside. It's landscape work. We've been at the Arts and Science Building. Of course, as I say, I spent 10 years at the University Hospital. We completely restored the Conley House.
Yeah,
which is on the campus.
Yeah,
we also built the new dorm that's at the corner that would be the southeast corner of College and Rollins.
All right. Yep. I know where that is.
We built that dorm a few years ago. So.
Other places in town apart from the university, you got, and you mentioned the Kroenke home, but other than that, businesses that are still that you can point us to that said this is a Reinhardt construction job
in Columbia, Missouri. Well, of course, the downtown, the county government building.
Yeah.
the Boone County Jail.
I keep thinking that is the new jail, but I know it's been there a really long time. I have the conversation with the sheriff sometimes. He says, we need to do this on the jail. And I'm saying, it's still pretty new. Oh, no, it's that many years
I'm
old.
not sure when we did that, but...
how fun is that? To figure out how to... you go from a very nice residence of one of the most wealthy men in the world to then you're doing a jail. I suppose there's certain security issues involved in both. But
the jail was before the residence, before Mr. Stanley.
Gosh, the jail has certain demands. You have to have people that learn, and you have to have that communication to say, does anything surprise you when they say, well, you know what? This is part of this project.
That's right, exactly right. Every project's unique, David. Every project's unique. But we've done most of the stadium shops for Stan. When there was it's now Macy's. It was Famous Bar before that. We built Famous Bar. We did all of that whole complex except the last phase. Although we went in the PetSmart. And finished that, but we did that. The Schnuck store.
Yeah.
And
wow.
The Schnuck store actually kind of changed the course of my company. One was the change of the homes. After the Kroenke home, we had the Stubler home, the Tatlow home, the Grossnickel home. We doubled the size of Joe Castiglione's home before he left, and then when he sold the home, he sold it to Mike Alden. Which is in the Grasslands, which is very, very nice. But when we built Schnucks, and this was back in the early 90s, Jose Linder was the developer. And Jose Linder said at that time, this is going to be built by a local contractor. And so, let me back up. Before that, in the 80s, SM Wilson is a company out of St. Louis. They're a large construction company, a lot bigger than we are. But they wanted a presence on the university campus, and so they came to us and would you bid as a joint venture one of these larger projects just for somebody? It was actually the new parking garage at the university, which would be back in the 80s. We bid 2 or 3 jobs with Wilson. Didn't get any of them. Nothing. We didn't get any of them. Go forward to 92, where we're talking about Jose Linder said the Schnuck store will be built by a local contractor. Craig Schnuck is sitting down in St. Louis saying, this job is going to be built by a St. Louis contractor. So you looked at the bid list, the local bid list that Jose had. He had Reinhardt Construction, he had B.D. Simon, he had Nip, and he had Haithman. Down in St. Louis, Craig Schnuck had Albarisi, Tarleton, Rollo, and S.M. Wilson. Those are the 4. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to call... Just thought to myself, I'm sitting at my desk just to think, what? And I hadn't talked to those people probably for 8 years, and I asked for Bob Bennett. Well, Bob Bennett had retired years ago. I said, oh, really? Well, I told him I'd like to talk to somebody about the job in Columbia, Missouri. And I said, hold on, you can talk to Scott. Oh, who's Scott? Scott Wilson. He's the president. So I talked to Scott, and Scott Wilson says, Jerry, let's just bid this together. So we did. We bid that as a joint venture. It was a closed letting. Well, you don't know where the numbers were. But guess what?
Schnucks got what it wanted, St. Louis, exactly, and then the local owner and developer got what he wanted.
Right. And so that was a great. So since that time, David, since 1992, with SM Wilson, I've done dollar-wise, which is all public. We've done over $400 million worth of work for that company.
Jerry Doherty is our guest. We'll pause for our final list of messages and then come back to finish this Heritage Show. This is News Talk 1400 KFRU.
This is the KFRU Heritage Series. More coming up on News Talk 1400 KFRU. KFRU is proud to present the KFRU Heritage Series.
Our final segment with Jerry Doherty, and I think we could talk of building projects and probably fill up a couple of more of these heritage shows. It's been fascinating because I don't know how it works. I don't know, and just the challenges and the risks that go into doing this. But once you have it going well, and as Reinhardt started it and brought you on pretty quickly, and now it's yours, does it ever amaze you the way that people, you have established a business that people trust, and the name means a lot. And that's got to feel good.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I've been very fortunate. I've been blessed. I got a great wife. Mary and I will celebrate our 43rd anniversary in July. And
Do people who come to work for you work generally a long time?
yes, my average employee now has been with me 15 years.
Wow.
My general manager, Cindy Hinspeter, who actually lives in Centralia. She lives like 3 miles from the office. David, she's been with me for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
And Virginia, my secretary, she's been with me now 22 years. So if I get good people, they want to work and they've got a good job, and you be sure that you take care of those people.
A couple of other places, or at least others that you want to mention as far as that you've done work for. State Farm, which you said, and I can't believe that's another place that seems very new to me. But
State Farm, when they were going to build a regional office building back in 1990 or 91, they invited 4 national firms, and one of those national firms was Turner, who operates all over the country. But every one of those national firms aligned themselves with a local contractor, and a Turner aligned themselves with Reinhardt. And we bid that job, and we were successful. And so that at that time, that was the largest single building permit in Columbia. It was 340,000 square feet. And that was $26 million. But I remember that. But
do people come to you and say, "Are you going to bid?" Or
we
want you to bid?
Sure,
I mean, they want you to do that, don't they?
You'll get invitations or people, right? And I've been so fortunate. Columbia College has been a godsend to my company. What Dr. Bruder has done there since his I guess 16 years is unbelievable.
Now that would be projects like right now the Science Building, which is going up. That's a brand new building.
We're doing the Science Building, which is there. We restored Missouri Hall a few years ago. Then we did Atkins Holman, the new Student Activity Center, which is tied right to Missouri Hall. We did 2 years ago. We did the Kepke Center, which is an exercise facility that's on the east side. That's on the east side of the road. And then we did all of Rangeline a year ago. We totally redid
Beautiful.
Rangeline, put the median in. We did all that. We remodeled Delaney Hall. Now there's a new practice hall for music, which was an existing building that we renovated.
You have to challenge yourself when you go in to renovate something, because many people who would be on a committee looking at that would say, well, we want to maintain as much as we can of what was original about this and made it unique and special.
Yes. And you know what, David? They've done that. Bob Hutton is the guy he's in charge of construction, he's been a great guy to work with. We just redid Dorsey Hall, which had been there forever. It was the old gym.
Yes.
But they wanted to keep some of the stuff that was material that was there. We actually took up the gym floor that was there, had it refinished it, and put it around the surround of the atrium going up where there's a track area, and around the facing of that, you see all of this wood, and that is the wood from the original gym floor.
How about that?
Yeah, and then we, so I mean, they're trying to keep that, and he did the same thing. He did the same thing in Missouri Hall, which is part of the exposure to the ceiling. We took some of the existing wood that had been in Missouri Hall since the 40s, took it out, refinished it, and now it's part of the panels. When you look up and see that, people that go in there, they know that was from, and they're told that that's from the old building.
When you tell people, like prospective people you want to employ, that would come and be the managers, do they know of Reinhardt? Do you? I don't know whether you recruit locally or recruit nationally, or what you do, or if it's a mixture.
Locally,
of the two.
Locally. I mean, you'll have.
Well, they would know the name.
They would know the name, and right now, fortunately, and of course, one of the downsides of my company is that we're aging, and I'm having superintendents that are retiring, which is fine. But I've got to replace those superintendents, so there'll be younger people who have worked for us that will come up through the ranks, because I'd much rather promote from within than to go outside. Where do
you? If somebody would say, where are you based as far as where do you keep your equipment or your offices?
It's all in Centralia.
Yeah,
it's all in Centralia. We've got a warehouse. We've got a warehouse there. We're just west of the cemetery, and right across from the break time. And behind it was a Hardee's that we built, and now it's a Mexican restaurant. But we've got a large warehouse there, and we've got an office that takes care of everything there. That's where we are.
Do you have memories of some of the favorite projects that maybe before you took over ownership of the company that you think that this is the first one, or I was nervous bidding this job, or I didn't know whether Mr. Reinhardt would like my work on this?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I go back 40 years, and I mean, they're great memories, and I think, I mean, the Kroenke home is something that I'll always remember. The library and the Kroenke home is something that, and I tell Stan and this, of all the construction projects I've done, the library is just something that I don't know that I'll have experience to do again. Although this last year, we completely remodeled the Orslin home. Barry Orslin moved to Columbia, and we completely restored a home that he had bought, which is there's some things in there, David, that you just don't find.
Can you feel? I would guess you could feel the Reinhardt reputation and name. I guess people would say. I just think I guess people could almost walk in and maybe sometimes say, "Did Reinhardt do this?" Do you think it's that distinct?
Yeah, I've had people tell me that they'll come in or tell me afterwards. They're going to say, "When I went in, I could tell you that it was Reinhardt built."
Yeah,
and might not even know that individual.
You have the roots of Centralia and Columbia, and we've only got about a minute left. It's been this is something that you've really liked. I mean, this has been just perfect for you, hasn't it?
It's been my home. It's been my job. I mean, and I've said this, and I said this to people, my good friends out of Kansas City. Resume versus relationship wins every time.
Yeah,
and you've got to have good relationships, or I don't think you're not going to continue the way that I want to go.
Yeah, well, I wish you'd leave that as our final word. I think that's fantastic. But it's some people, I mean, that's a lesson that some people fail to learn, and some very top-level people in some organizations and companies have failed to learn that, haven't they?
Yeah, I think you're correct, David. Yes.
I appreciate you taking the time to visit with you and with us, and I'm always glad when I know it's you on the other end of the line. I can always tell because you're got the energy and the excitement in your voice. So keep on calling, and maybe we'll have you back sometime on the Heritage Show. But it's been great to learn about your business and also to feel your great connection to Boone County and northern Boone County in particular. Thanks, Jerry.
Right. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Jerry Doherty has been our guest. That's the Heritage Show this week. Join us again on News Talk 1400 KFRU.
You've been listening to the KFRU Heritage Series, celebrating our history and heritage of Columbia and Boone County. Listen each Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The KFRU Heritage Series.